Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 128 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by my partner in crime, Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Now, for once, Ayaz is usually the beautiful one on the boxing thing. I'm kind of the brains. I think Ayaz is mainly the beauty. Well, this week we have a third guest, a very beautiful Mariam. Mariam, welcome to the show once again. Obviously, you were on before to replace Ayaz, and now it's the best of both. I've got you both with me, so I'm excited. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Of course, there's lots of stuff to go over, so let's dive straight into the reviewing part. We're going to start last Thursday. One fight to mention that happened on the 22nd of March. This one was over in the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. There's a kid on this bill called Ryan Garcia. I think he's only about 19. He had a real, huge amount of amateur fights. He was a very good amateur, and obviously he's turned pro now. He moved to 14-0. He's got 13 knockouts in those wins there, and this one was a very quick one. A first round KO against Fernando Vargas, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think went 9 rounds with Jamie McDonnell, just getting the measuring stick out. I think that was on the 9th of April, the night that Joshua become a world champion and beat Charles Martin at the O2. I think he went 9 rounds with Jamie McDonnell that night. So quite a statement there from the young man, Ryan Garcia. That one was for the NABF Junior Super-Featherweight title. That's a bit confusing. Junior Super-Featherweight title. Yeah, I've got that right. Moving over now to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. This one in Hollywood, Florida, USA. What do we have here? This one was actually a strange one. It was the debut of Roberto Duran Jr. Yes, it is the son of Mr. Hands of Stone. He made his pro debut, a 4th round TKO. It was only scheduled for 4. Both fighters were making their debuts there, so a good win there for Roberto Duran Jr. Unfortunately, the guy in the opposite corner, Miguel Morales, his record now 0-1. But TKO in round 4. Very impressive start there for Roberto Duran Jr. Moving over now to France. One fight to mention at the Palais des Sports in Marseille. Well, the WBA, like I said last week, the WBA really showing a lot of love to France at the moment. A guy on this bill called Michel Soro, 31-2 with 1 draw going in against the previously undefeated John Vera, 18-0. Michel Soro managed to grind out a points win over 12 rounds unanimously there. That one was for the interim WBA World Super Welterweight title. Also on this bill, a guy who I hadn't really heard of. His name's Arsen Goulamirian. He was 22-0. He took on Riyad Mary, who was 24-0. Both guys a little bit padded when you look at their resumes, to be honest. This one was for the vacant WBA World Cruiserweight title. That's, if I'm not mistaken, one of the ones that kind of got dropped throughout this, the World Boxing Super Series Cruiserweight tournament. But it was a TKO in the 11th round for the home fighter, Arsen Goulamirian. Again, I can't tell you too much about him, but he's 23-0, and it's a great win for him. He's going to be, I'm sure, mentioned with, some of the top cruiserweights in the world now. I'm sure they'll be after him. Moving over now to Germany, a couple of, just one fight or 2 fights on this bill actually, a couple of strange ones here. Former opponent of Nathan Cleverly, former opponent of Bernard Hopkins, Karo Murat, 31-3 with 2 draws, took on Travis Reeves, who was 15-2 with 2 draws. This one was for the vacant IBO World Light Heavyweight title, a TKO in round 12 for Karo Murat, so he becomes the IBO champion now. I didn't see that fight. I'm going to hold my hands up. And also on the undercard, Tyrone Zoiga, former opponent of the very popular Paul Smith. His record, 22-0 now with just the one draw. It was a WBA World Super-Middleweight title defence. I think he was a champion here, but he made light work of his opponent, Africa's Isaac Ekpo, 32-3, now 32-4. The TKO came as early as the second round, so quite an impressive win there for Zoiga. Moving over now to Puerto Rico at the Complejo Ferial in Ponce. A couple fights to mention on this bill. Firstly, Zachary Ochoa was supposed to be on the bill, 18-1. His fight fell through at the last minute, so he ended up not fighting. But the main event over here, strangely enough, was a prospect out of the Robert Garcia gym called Joshua Franco. He was previously 13-0 going into this fight. He took on a guy who was 11-1 with one draw, who's got about 4 different names, so I'm going to shorten it down to Lucas Leone. Now, Lucas Leone was actually down in the second round, but in the 9th round he got a TKO where the referee, from what I'm hearing, jumped in very, very early. People are going absolutely crazy on social media about the stoppage. I haven't been able to see it. I regret to inform you, but apparently the stoppage was really bad. I tried to look for footage on YouTube, but it's not on there. So I'd like maybe perhaps if somebody has seen it to let us know what you thought about it. But Joshua Franco loses his O, unfortunately. He goes by the name of the Professor as well. So bad night there for the Professor. 13-1 now, Joshua Franco, a TKO against him. Moving over now to Russia. One fight to mention over here. This one was actually at the Basket Hall in Russia. Just give me just a moment here to pull this one up. So 2 or 3 fights to mention on this bill. I think just 2. There's a guy who... to be honest, Ayaz, I think we spoke about him just briefly last week. Mariam, maybe you're not too familiar with this guy, but he's a guy from the Ukraine. In fact, no, sorry, he's from Russia. He's based, though, over in Big Bear. I think he probably trains alongside Abel Sanchez. But anyway, his record now, 33-0. A real, long streak in terms of undefeated streaks right now. And he's a welterweight. He got in there against a guy called Pavel Mamontov, who was 12-6 with 2 draws. Seems quite clearly overmatched there, and it was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds for Konstantin Ponomarev. So he's now 33-0. Like I say, I'd like to see him step it up a little bit here, but he became the Russian champion here. The title was vacant before the bout. And the final fight to mention on this bill, Andrei Sorokin, 14-0. He moves to 15-0. He's a guy from Russia. He's 33 years old. He took on Ryan Ford. Again, Ryan Ford at one point was linked to fight Anthony Yard. That fight fell through. He's a Canadian native. He's 36. In his last fight before this, he lost to Fedor Chudanov over 12 rounds for the WBA International. But this fight here was for the WBA Intercontinental, and Ryan Ford lost. So he's now 14-2, and Sorokin remains undefeated. Like I say, 15-0. Not too much power he carries, though. Only the 4 knockouts for him. Moving over now to the O2 Arena, the big one for the Brits, of course, over here. Just going to quickly fly through the undercard. Craig Richards moved to 11-1. It was a TKO in round 3 against Ivan Stupalo. Strangely enough, they had a weigh-in here, obviously, for the fight, and the fight was made at light heavyweight. We all know that Craig Richards has only really kind of had 2 proper fights at light heavyweight. One was a fight where, he kind of came into the bout after moving up from super middleweight, and then literally after that fight, a couple of days later, I think it was 4 or 5 days later, he took on Frank Buglioni for the British title. This fight here, strangely enough, he came in over the weight. Just by a little bit, only by a quarter of a pound, but even still, so he kind of weighed in, as harsh as it may seem, he weighed in as a cruiserweight. But yeah, his opponent did make the weight, but anyway, he knocked the guy out in 3 rounds, no title on the line, no big deal, I suppose. 3 rounds there. It was scheduled for 6. Jamie Cox moved to 25 wins. He's got the 1 loss as well. It was a KO in the second round against Harry Matthews, who had a record of 15-25 with 2 draws. Easy comeback fight there for Jamie Cox before he takes on John Ryder on the Hay Bellew 2 undercard. Anthony Fowler moved to 5-0. It was a TKO in round 5 against Kalilu Dembele, who was undefeated actually going into the ring with a record of 6-0 with 2 draws. Dembele was down twice. Just once in round 2, but then, of course, in the 5th round, the referee had seen enough. Chris Congo moved to 8-0 against a guy called Serge Ambomo, who to be honest, he was actually quite a decent fighter, Mbomo. I think he took a couple of good fighters the distance. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but he took a few good fighters the distance. I might actually have to quickly check that. But yeah, basically this fight here, it seems unimpressive simply because this was the only fight on the entire bill that went to the cards. All the other fights ended in knockouts. But yeah, he just recently, the opponent here, gone 8 rounds with David Avanesian, former world champion, and also he beat the undefeated at the time Temuka Mucha as well. So quite a decent opponent there. Like I say, he took Chris Kongo 6 rounds, a win there for Chris Kongo. Derek Chisora moved to 28-8. He had his man down and out with a humongous overhand right that we don't get to see too much from Chisora. He looked quite explosive there. His opponent was previously a cruiserweight, I think, and he'd only had 2 fights in about 7 years, something like that. So was to be expected, I suppose. He had a record of 14-2 with 2 draws. Just quickly, I'm going to throw it over to one of you guys. Ayaz, did you manage to catch the Chisora fight? Because when I actually tuned in, I saw the finish, but I didn't actually see the full fight because I tuned in a few minutes late, because I tuned in about half an hour late because I completely messed up the timing. What did you make of Derek Chisora's performance, if you did see it, Ayaz?
Well, it's a typical Derek Chisora performance. Obviously, he's going to fight a person that he would have beaten easy, but well done. Good knockout for him. And just the antiques after the fight was the funniest thing, where he goes to David Hill. Oh yeah, I like the rap music about me, and then talk about the purse and him versus Joe Joyce fight.
Yeah, we said it on last week's show, didn't we, about the Joe Joyce diss track? Well, the Derek Chisora diss track, I suppose you'd say. Not many people knew about that. I'd heard it, like I sent it to you, I think, Ayaz, as well. But yeah, it broke a couple days later. So yeah, quite a good tune though. Have you heard that tune, Mariam? Have you heard the diss track? It's quite good.
No, I haven't heard that one. You're going to have to send it over to me.
I'll have to do that. It is quite good. You'll find yourself kind of just vibes into it in a chair somewhere. Moving up the bill once again, Frank Buglioni. Oh boy, this one was quite hard quite a hard pill to swallow, even for me, to be honest. I mean, Frank Buglioni, this was his 3rd defence of the British title. It was against I think it's 4 opponents in a row now that have had undefeated records. He was going to be the first man, if I'm not mistaken, to win the belt against an undefeated fighter, then defend it against 3 undefeated fighters and win it outright. It wasn't meant to be, though. It wasn't meant to be. A very early night there for him. Callum Johnson in the other corner. He had a little bit of inactivity, but like I said on last week's show, he was a good amateur, and obviously he was the Commonwealth champion as well. So, he was undefeated. He was no mug, really, and he seemed to really kind of strike me with the strength and the size. I mean, he looked all muscle, and he got in there and knocked Buglioni out in the first round. It was a knockdown that was followed by kind of a bit of unsteady legs, and just as the referee stopped it, the towel come flying in from Frank Buglioni's corner. Don Charles, he threw the white towel in. What did you make of that fight, Mariam? I know that you watched that one. Very disappointing, though, for Frank Buglioni.
Yeah, I was hugely disappointed. I think especially because he's looked so strong ever since the loss to Chudinov, I believe. And he's really come back and he's had a lot of momentum. So I don't think anyone was really expecting that. I think they expected Johnson to put up a good fight, but I don't think anyone called that first round knockout stoppage. But I still think Buglioni is a good fighter. I just think he had a huge off fight, and that's not to take anything away from Johnson. But Buglioni has shown that he's a really great fighter. So I just think that was not very representative of him.
Yeah, and Ayaz, what did you make of the fight there? Like I say, we didn't know too much about Johnson, especially against, marquee opponents, because when you actually look at his resume, he's got quite a few opponents that he's took on and beaten, obviously, but they've all kind of had losing records. There's not many standout names, but this was his first big name, and he completely destroyed Buglioni.
Last week, I remember saying on the show, I said Frank Buglioni was going to win by points. But wow, what can I say? What a performance by Callum Johnson. Obviously, the emotions got to him because obviously he said that his father passed away. But the way when Buglioni hit him, when Callum Johnson hit him first time, yeah, he rocked Buglioni. Buglioni came back, but then Callum Johnson's beat him. But congratulations to Callum Johnson. I want to see him fight Anthony Yard.
Yeah, that'd be a good fight, because it seemed like the only reason why the the Burton and Yard fight wasn't happening was because Yard said that, Frank Buglioni had beaten him, so he didn't want to take him on. Well, now he can't say that same excuse about Callum Johnson, so perhaps that could happen. One thing that I did pick up on that I haven't seen anybody mention though is just before I think it was a right hook that first stunned Buglioni, and kind of from there it all went downhill. But right before it landed, there was a big head clash, and it kind of seemed like the head clash, literally as soon as they bumped heads, bang, a punch has been landed by Johnson. It was almost as if Buglioni was a little bit shook up from the head clash, and I don't think his gloves they clearly weren't right up and protecting him at the time, so it could have been one of those ones where you clash heads and then you kind of put your gloves down and expect the referee to say something or something like that. I don't want to throw him a lifeline too much, but it did look like a headbutt followed by a big shot, and nobody really picked up on it, so a little interesting thing to point out there.
Can I just add very quickly? If the Johnson yard fight does happen in absence of the Buglioni yard fight, I think that's really good. But I think this perhaps also sets the way for the Burton Buglioni rematch, because I'm not sure if you guys remember, but that was a really good fight while it lasted. I remember watching it in Manchester, and the entire crowd were just enthralled by it. So I think that, obviously now Burton's, come back, he's won a few fights in a good fashion. But I think Buglioni, even coming off that loss, I think it sets up the rematch quite well. I'm not sure if you agree.
Yeah, no, how can I forget the great fight first time round? I think that would be good, but I feel for Buglioni because I do want him to kind of get the rematch, even though it sounds a bit silly. I'd like to see him get a third defense of the title to win it outright, because you do kind of have to say to yourself, he was offered, I think it was about 120 grand to take on Yard. Now, I don't think Yard would have finished him in a round, and also he got there was interest for him to take on Kovalev, to take on Andre Ward at one point. He turned those down to try and win the belt outright, and the worst thing that could have happened against those guys is he'd have got knocked out as well, in the first round. So, I hate to kind of be an after-timer, but in the aftermath, looking back now in hindsight, he's probably kicking himself about that. So I feel gutted for him because, like we all know, he's one of the most genuine guys in the business. We all incorrectly predicted last week for Buglioni to win the fight on points. Me, you, Ayaz, and also the listeners. We were completely wrong with that one. So a big red X there, no points for that one. Moving up this bill once again, Lewis Ritson, boy oh boy, he moved to 15-0, a TKO in the second round against Scott Cardle. Scott Cardle, the previous holder of the British title, and that is Lewis Ritson's second defence now. I was saying that I think all in the space of 5 months, he's won the title and defended it twice. All in 5 months. It's quite incredible. Remember, he's only 24. We really, we kind of run away with the potential that this man has got at the moment. There's really no limit to where he can get to. Very destructive performance, Ayaz. I'm going to come to you first. Wow, oh wow. Blown away once again by Lewis Ritson.
Yes, well, another win for Lewis Ritson, another shock defeat, another shock win. I saw some videos like he's a Golovkin, the Triple G of England.
The Geordie Golovkin, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Geordie Golovkin. I was like, wait a minute, what? But well done. He obviously first he beat John Murray, was it? Sorry?
Joe Murray.
Yeah, Joe Murray beat Joe Murray, and now he beat Scotty Cardle. I heard it was good, a very good win for him. But at the start, you can see like they're having a tear up first round, and the second round, bam, Ritson beat him. But apparently, they're building up a fight between him and Josh Kelly.
Yeah, I think that's probably one for the future. And when I say future, probably at least a year, I reckon, before that had happened, if that even happens. I think that they're both looking such promising prospects. I'm not quite sure that Hearn would want to collide them this early. It's a very different relationship he's got compared to the ones that I think he had with Okoli and Isaac Chamberlain. I think that it's not quite that relationship. I think he's really, deeply embedded in both of their careers, whereas you would say between Okoli and Chamberlain, he was kind of more on one guy's side. Most people believe that anyway. Mariam, what did you make of his performance? Isn't he really, turning up every time now and just looking better and better every time?
I know. The first few times that I'd heard about him, I wasn't actually watching him on undercards, but I saw there was a lot of hype around him on Twitter and everyone was shouting out his name and going on about him and how great he was. So I thought I'd check him out. And he doesn't really fail to meet expectations. He looks really, really good. But I mean, I would really hesitate in terms of calling him the Geordie Golovkin, even as a joke, because I think we all know how big of a fan I am of Golovkin. I don't think anyone's at that level or looks to be, on that trajectory just yet. But no, I really like him. I think he's a great fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to quickly break down this fight here. I will give Scotty Cardle some credit. I mean, I don't think he fought with the right game plan, but he came out firing in the first round. He seemed to not really be able to miss Lewis Ritson with either hand, and he was actually slipping the shots that were coming at him. Lewis Ritson was showing us no head movement whatsoever, just gritting it out kind of thing. It was a massive first round for Cardle, and like I say, Ritson was really made to be second best a bit, but to his credit, none of the punches did seem to hurt him. Obviously, we know Cardle isn't really the biggest of punches, but he did cut Ritson as well, that a lot of people again are just forgetting that. I think he cut Ritson's eye in the first round. The second round he came out, and boy oh boy, the midpoint of the round was where Ritson just pinned Cardle on the ropes. Cardle stupidly opted to trade with Ritson rather than grab hold of him or anything like that, and he probably took about 10 too many shots. Scott Cardle, followed by a big left hook that staggered him into the ropes. Bob Williams pulled Ritson off of him and actually gave a standing count to Scott Cardle, which I think was quite fair of the ref, really. I think he showed him a little bit of leniency, really, because I think he didn't have to pull Ritson off of him. But when the pair did resume the boxing, obviously Ritson was teeing off on Cardle, and within seconds Joe Gallagher threw the towel in, and rightly so. Cardle was gone. He showed a lot of heart, like I say, but yeah, Lewis Ritson, just seems to keep impressing, and I really saw that fight completely different before the fight. I said that Scott Cardle was very awkward, and I felt that Ritson would probably end up winning a decision. Well, I was very wrong there. But you guys, I think Ayaz, you was involved in it as well. Yes, you both went with Ritson to win by knockout yourself and the listeners, so you both gain a point there. I was kicking myself when I realised that. The main event, though, Dillian Whyte, 22-1. He put his WBC silver heavyweight title on the line against Lucas Big Daddy Browne, 25-0, former WBA world heavyweight champion. A man that, let's be honest, he'd been inactive for quite a while in the last couple of years and that, but a very big, brutal knockout in the 6th round for Dillian Whyte, and, he kind of showed his class and showed his levels above Lucas Browne here. I'll throw it over to you first, Mariam. Brilliant performance from Dillian Whyte.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. One thing that really stood out to me was how precise Whyte was in this fight, and I think that's something that he's definitely worked on. I know in previous fights, a lot of critics of him have said, he's not really accurate, he's not very precise, he kind of just throws shots, he's a bit sluggish, but that's something that really stood out to me in this fight. He seemed to choose his shots very well, and the way that he built up to that final, I think it was the left hook that ended it, it was just really nice to see finally come out of Whyte, because I think it really turned this assumption that he's just a slugger. I think it turned that assumption on its head, essentially.
Yeah, I think, the way I saw the fight, I mean, the first round I didn't think was a particularly great round. I think that, nothing was really landed, nothing eye-catching, but you'd obviously have to give the round to Dillian Whyte. I think that we saw straight away that Lucas Browne was carrying a bit of weight around the belly. I'm not quite sure why. He seemed to be the much slower of the two fighters, Browne, and he looked very, very one-dimensional. Very bad footwork from him. He just simply lacks those fundamentals of the boxing game. He's too easy to hit. He's got a bad defense. Dillian was working his jab very well, which I like to see. Lucas kept walking into it a lot. I gave every round to Dillian Whyte, and he was busting Lucas Browne up. But Browne, for most of the fight, I will say, was on the front foot to his credit. Dillian, most of his work really in the entirety came off the back foot, which I suppose was quite impressive from him. We don't see that too often either. And Browne kept switching stances repeatedly. I don't know why he was doing that. Nothing was working there whatsoever. He couldn't work Whyte out at all. And then, like I say, in the 6th round, I think it was just 38 seconds into the 6th round, bang, a huge left hook, put Browne to sleep, face down on the canvas, brutal finish, and Browne needed to be carried out of the ring, which we don't like to see. But a big statement by Dillian Whyte, who, he wasn't only live on Sky, but also in the States on HBO. Ayaz, what did you make of his performance? Very brutal from Dillian Whyte.
Let me say something. That on when he fought Lucas Browne, the jab was the most effective thing he did. You can see by the jab, he was hurting him with the jab. Whyte was just hitting him with the jab. To this Whyte I've seen, you can see like he's conditioned himself very, very well. He's lost a lot of weight and he's carried a lot of muscle. But he busted Lucas Browne up within the second and third round. And you can see Lucas Browne's face is all messed up. Obviously, Dillian Whyte was hitting him. But like I said, the jab was the most effective thing in the whole fight. That's why Lucas Browne got hurt. And obviously, towards the sixth round, that right, was it left hand or right hand, sorry?
Left hook.
Sorry, yeah, left hook, yeah. And knocked him out ice cold. When I saw that knock, I thought it reminded me of when Juan Manuel Marquez knocked out Pacquiao.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, another brutal one. What I will say, I correctly predicted Whyte to get the stoppage win, so I managed to come back from my 1 point deficit this week. You and the listeners' eyes both agreed that Whyte would win on points. I think we could tell really from the first round that, Browne wasn't going to last the 12 or the 10. I think it was 12. Was it 12 rounds or 10? I think it was pretty sure it was. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was 12. Yeah, so I didn't think he'd even last 10. To be honest, I didn't think he'd even last 5. Really, the way the fight was going. But yeah, credit to Dillian Whyte, a huge win, and he moves on now to bigger and better things. We all want to see him in there with one of the big names. I'd like to see him in there with not Dillian Whyte. I'd like to see him in there with Deontay Wilder. I got confused because both their initials are DW, so you'll have to forgive me on that. But yeah, that really wraps up the reviewing. That is the end of that. Just before we wrap up part 1, there's one last thing to do. That, of course, is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the trainer of some of the best talent that the UK has to offer. It's, of course, Mr. Peter Fury. Peter, welcome to the show.
Yeah, pleasure.
Hey, it's my pleasure, sir. A little fact I just want to give out to the listeners that may not know. Peter Fury actually kick-started our podcast. He was our first ever guest on this show. That was back in 2015. So Peter's a very special guest on this show. But Peter, we haven't spoke on this show for almost a year. At the time when we did speak, I think it was in the build-up to the first proposed Parker-Fury fight when it was set to happen in New Zealand. Obviously, that fight fell through. It ended up happening in September in the UK. Just a couple of notes on that fight itself, Peter. I know that you were obviously in the corner on the night, but have you had a chance to, I'm sure you have, I'm sure you've had a chance to sit down and watch it back, and if so, did you score it, and how did you score it?
It's one of them, when you're very close up and you're looking at it, and you're seeing a lot of the shots thrown being blocked, and the quality of the shots, the one who was controlling the pace and everything, I just had Hughie a clear winner. I had him at least 4 or 5 rounds ahead of it. So I never even had it close, but everybody's got their opinion. That was my opinion of it.
And those two 118, 110, 118, 110 scorecards in favour of Joseph Parker, were they some of the most fortunate scorecards an away fighter has ever really had on UK soil, you feel?
Yeah, the scores are bent, aren't they? They done that with an ulterior motive, so it's not possible to have that wider margin. It's ridiculous. I think... those people listening to Joseph Parker's corner, and I think Kevin Barry said, look, in the 10th round, Joseph Parker needed a knockout to win it. So it just goes to show you, that how the scores was absolutely disgusting, to be honest. Shouldn't be allowed in boxing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't really remember how I scored it, but I felt that Hughie, put on a little bit of a boxing lesson, to be honest. When I heard the 118, 110 scorecards, I assumed that they were going to be for Hughie, and I didn't really have any problems with those scores if they were for Hughie. But when they said "and still," I just couldn't believe my eyes or ears, to be honest. But looking on to something more positive now, Peter, obviously, in my eyes anyway, after Hughie arguably beating a heavyweight world champion, he's proved to the public now that he is world level. Dropping down a couple of levels, though, to fight for a British title can feel a little bit underwhelming. Obviously, Hughie skipped the domestic scene to challenge for the world title in the first place. So why was there such a step back kind of thing? No disrespect to the British title, of course.
It's not a step back. It's a fight back. It's a good fight. It's a heavyweight fight for Channel 5 TV. And it was the only fight that was available to us. So, we've tried to get a lot higher ranked opponents, but for one reason or another, they didn't fancy the job. So, here we are. full credit to Sam Sexton because he has stepped up to the plate. But like I said, we've done a lot of inquiring for a lot of fighters, even ranked 2 and 3 in the world, 5 and 6, up to 8, 9, 10. All in the top 10. We tried quite a few actually.
And obviously, before the Parker fight, Hughie was out of the ring for quite a while. After the fight, by the time this next fight comes around, it would be 8 months after the Parker fight. Why? Because even that seems quite a long time, I felt, because I felt he won that fight, so did you, so did everybody, really. Why was there like an 8-month break? Was he injured at all? Was it maybe he needed some time out to get his head right again? What was it, Peter?
No problem at all. He had Christmas off and he's been training from January. So he's been constantly ticking over. Hennessy Sports, their first show they could do was in May. So wasn't too amused with the time scale. But it's perfectly fine because we're going to make it up after the fight. So expect Hughie out 3 to 4 times this year. So he is going to be busy. We're looking to have him out again in July, all being well with this one in May. So, and then he'll fight again towards the end of the year.
Excellent. So once again, Hughie will be fighting the reigning British heavyweight champion Sam Sexton. The fight will take place on May the 12th in Bolton. It will be shown, as you said, on Channel 5, which is brilliant news for fight fans. Sam Sexton's a man that's gone undefeated for almost 6 years now. Obviously, he carries 3 losses on his resume, but they were to 2 men, twice losing to a very fresh and undefeated version of Derek Chisora. The other one was to David Price back in May 2012. What else do we know about Sam Sexton, Peter?
I think Sam Sexton's underrated. I think he's very durable. He's got good boxing skills. He moves as well. He's not somebody that comes in overweight. He's fit. He's in shape. He's got a very good trainer. So, it's excuse me. I think he ticks a lot of boxes. It's a good domestic fight, this. But what I see, Hughie's just on a world level. So I just see a golfing difference there. But that still, everybody's in with a very good chance. So I'm sure they've got their plans coming into this fight. So we've got to look at it very seriously as well because you can take your eye off the ball. We're not looking past anybody. It's one fight at a time. I concentrate fully on the job, and like I said, nothing's overlooked.
And as you said, Hughie Fury would perhaps be fighting twice more, providing all is well in this fight here. He'd perhaps fight 2 or 3 times more before the year's out. If he wins this fight, he'll become the British champion. Will that be 2 or 3 defences of the British title, do you see?
No, well, we're looking back to get back on the world stage as fast as possible. Yeah. So, that's where we're at. If somebody wants to fight for the British title, it's interest to us, we'll have a look at it. And if not, we'll just move on to bigger fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to a couple of other fighters and fights now, I just want to mention here. What was your reaction to Dillian Whyte's brutal knockout win over Lucas Browne on the past weekend?
I think Dillian Whyte did what he had to do. He looked well, he trained well, he put some lovely shots together, and he did what he had to do, and it was a stunning performance. However, Browne, I've never rated Browne. He's not really a finesse boxer. He's just a big, tough fellow. He's got power in his hands. Like I said, his movement, his boxing. I just don't. I didn't rate his performance at all, to be honest. So it's just what it is. I think Dillian Whyte he's in a different league to the likes of Browne. When you put fighters in like this with each other, you can see the goal for difference. And this is what happens.
Yeah.
It was a great performance by Dillian Whyte. So maximum credit to him. He got the job done and he's done it in style.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to get your thoughts on Joshua versus Parker. Obviously, the fight's set to happen in just a couple of days' time. How's it going to play out in your eyes? I think that David Hay said something really accurate in my opinion. David Hay said that if Parker can take Joshua past the 6th round, then he's in with a great chance. Do you agree with that?
More or less, yeah. I think Parker's got to use his boxing skills. He's got to, but he's fast hands as well. And the good thing with this fight is, Joshua can't run into Parker because he has got power himself. So he's not somebody that can't punch. When you look at his fights and he won the world title, he fought Andy Ruiz Jr., who's as tough as a brick. who's tough as teak. He fought Carlos Takam, another guy who's tough as teak, as we know. And then he fought Hughie Fury, who's got a granite chin and he's very elusive. He's very hard to hit. So when you look at it, he's not a light puncher himself, Parker. He can. When the levels has dropped, he's demolished his opponents. So like I said, it's only when he stepped up to world level, where the power's not been so that big of an impact. But then again, he's fought very durable guys. So, Joshua's got a watch coming on to Parker because Parker can punch himself. So I think it's a very interesting fight, this. I think it's a very good fight. I think it's a lot more even than what people think it is. And if Joshua comes past Parker, he needs maximum credit because young Parker, he's a worthy world champion.
Yeah, for sure. And I must ask you a question or two about Tyson, Peter. You've both obviously parted ways. You were the man that guided him to the world titles. You were the man that set out the game plans. You were the man that provided the workout plans for Tyson to shed all the weight. You were the mastermind behind his career, to be honest. You did an outstanding job with him. He was undefeated. It was perfect. Why did this beautiful thing come to an end? I mean, it seems so unfair almost for boxing fans.
I don't discuss family issues with anyone, so it's a personal matter. We had, coming through his career, he's the loveliest young fella on the planet. There was, unbelievable. It was a fairy tale what happened. He went over there, we struggled, and we done everything to get the mandatory position. He kept knocking him back, and he persevered. His perseverance, and we went over there, and he had a fantastic win. It was one of the best nights of all our lives in boxing. So that's what it is. It put the name on the map. So he did fabulous stuff. So that's where I want to leave it, on a good note, and I'm not interested in anything negative. Only positive. I'm not interested in what happened after the Klitschko fight because I think it's all a disaster. That was a very proud moment for me. We had a special bond, and that's the memories I want to look at, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just about 2 weeks later just before, we started the interview, I was saying to you that when I was in the dressing room with you, I think that was a few weeks after that, and I remember Tyson kind of being in the dressing room talking to all the other pros that were fighting on the card that night who were maybe 3-4-0, and he was taking a great interest into those guys and what they were doing in their career. People don't see that. It's obviously a shame. Tyson is a real man of the people. And just before I let you go, Peter, anything that you want to tell the listeners at all just before we let you go? Anything at all?
I wish everybody a very happy Easter. We're going to enjoy a lovely weekend of boxing, and may the best man win on the night.
Absolutely. Listen, Peter, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. It truly is, Uncle. Best of luck for May 12th. Thank you for your time, and we'll catch up sometime after.
You're welcome, young man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. Let's go over now to the Trevor McDonald of the boxing world, Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, what you got for us?
Right. Ismael Salas has split up with Jorge Linares.
Yeah, it's a strange one because, of recent years especially, his link up with Linares has kind of made him quite popular over here. And I think when he was over here with Linares, that was the real times where I think the British fighters that have now linked up with him, i.e. David Hay and, the rest of them, they kind of got to see him, I think, when he was over here with Linares, and that they're now with him, and now it seems quite bizarre that he's split with Linares. I don't quite know the ins and outs of it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Ismael Salas has actually bought a house over here now, so maybe he's based over here and Linares didn't want to be. I don't know, because Linares is weird, isn't it? He's from South America, he fights in America, but I think he lives in Japan, and then his trainer's going to be in the UK. It's all a bit crazy, so quite a strange one, especially the fact that Linares has got a humongous fight coming up. But yeah, it's bizarre. But I'd like to see who he ends up working with, really. But hopefully it works well for him because I'm a fan of Linares, and I give him credit for taking this fight on May 12th.
Right, Amir Khan will be training with Joe Goosen after Virgil Hunter had some health issues.
Yeah, first and foremost, our wishes and well wishes go out to Virgil Hunter on behalf of all of us. I'm not quite sure of which kind of health issues he's having. I don't know if it's physical or anything like that, but whatever it is, we wish him all the best. He's been a great trainer to a number of fighters, and we don't want to see him in any kind of health problems at all. But yeah, Joe Goossen's a good trainer. I'm not quite surprised, to be honest. I'm not very surprised, to be honest. I know that Amir Khan's been out to that gym a few times, the Goosen gym in California. He's done quite a few sessions over there with the guys there, Ricky Funes as well. And it's not really a surprise because Amir Khan's quite flashy and all that. I'm not, I'd have been very surprised if he linked up with a UK trainer. So yeah, he's got Joe Goosen, who's now travelled over to the UK to train him, which I did find a little bit surprising, the fact that he travelled over here, because Joe Goosen's like a very sort of proud American guy, but I'm not quite sure who he's training at the moment. So maybe that's why, it's kind of a good thing at a good time for him. So yeah, credit to them both. I like Joe Goosen as well. He doesn't take no rubbish from nobody at all. So yeah, that'd be interesting. He knows his boxing very well.
Right, Terence Crawford will fight Jeff Horn on June the 9th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas. Yeah,
firstly, it was a shame that the first fight fell through. It was set to happen on April 14th. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I think now there was going to be boxing every single week for 9 weeks. All great fights every weekend. And obviously on the 14th, Billy Joe against Martin Murray, that fell through. So did this one in the States. So there's no boxing now on the 14th. But to the delight of boxing fans, both those cards have been rescheduled in pretty quick succession. So it's good to have them both rescheduled, both set for June, and this one here, June 9th. I'm happy that it's going to happen. I'm still not too over the moon with the fight, because I think there's only going to be, or most people believe that one man's going to win it quite easy. Some kind of a bit of a cakewalk, really, most people say, and I kind of tend to agree with that. So I'm happy that the fight's happening, but once again, I don't think it's a fantastic fight. But yeah, I'm glad it's been rescheduled, and Jeff Horn is hopefully being paid very well for it, because that'll probably be the last time he's in a world title fight, I'd imagine. Is that it for the news, Ayaz?
Yes, that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Moving over now to the previewing, a few fights to mention here, there and everywhere. We're going to start, though, at the Guildhall in Preston, Lancashire, United Kingdom. We have, what do we have? We've got one fight to mention on this bill. It's a bit of a weird one. Jack Catterall, 19-0, takes on Nathan Hardy, 7-19 with 3 draws. I think that Jack Catterall's got a fight coming up on his promoter Frank Warren's card. I don't know when it is. I think it might be on the Leeds undercard, Warrington and Selby. But anyway, whoever he's fighting on that card, I think I even know, but it's slipped my mind at the moment. But anyways, he's getting out once again before that on on another promoter's show. So he's in there against a guy with a losing record. I'm sure it's just kind of like a fight to keep him ticking over kind of thing. It's a 6-rounder, so all the best to Jack Catterall. Moving over now to the BT Convention Centre in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. 2 fights on this bill. One of them, another Frank Warren fighter who's fighting on another guy's card. It's Lerone Richards, the sniper, 10-0. His opponent yet to be announced. And the main event over here, I think he said Michael, it might be Michal. Anyway, Michal Sirowatka, 19-1. Sirowatka, he beat and took the O of Robbie Davies Jr. the first time round. It was a kind of strange fight for Robbie Davies Jr. the first time round. I think he was winning the fight, and then he got caught and he ended up being knocked out. So he's very bravely gone straight back in with this guy. I think he's had no fights in the interim. I think he's just literally jumped straight back in with this guy, the Polish fighter Sirowatka, and I got to give him a lot of credit for doing that. He wants to avenge his sole defeat on his resume. It's a 12-rounder. It's for the WBA Continental Super Lightweight title, which was the belt that Sirowatka took from Robbie Davies Jr. So lots and lots of credit to Robbie Davies Jr. I really hope he can prevail this time, and in good fashion, because even though I'll be in Cardiff, I'll be definitely having him in the back of my mind, and I really hope he can do it because he's a real nice guy. Moving over now to the Marina Bay Sportsplex in a place called Quincy in Massachusetts. A bit of a mouthful that. Those are the types of venues that I like. What have we got over here? Jason Quigley, actually, 13-0. He takes on Daniel Rosario Cruz, who's 11-3 with 0 draws. He's just 11-3. It's an 8-rounder there. That one's going to be shown on ESPN2 out in the States. It's a co-promotion with Golden Boy and Murphy's Boxing, that one. Jason Quigley recently linked up, as we know, with Dominic Ingle. So, I think it's strange. I thought he'd probably be fighting over in the UK a bit, but I don't really know who he's with. I think is he still with Golden Boy? Does anyone know? Jason Quigley? I think he is.
Yeah, he still is.
He still is, right. So, yeah, he's fighting over there but training over here. So I wasn't quite sure what had happened when he moved over here to train. I thought that perhaps, his contract was up or something. But I like him. Again, he's been on the show a couple of times. In fact, I think just once. But anyway, everybody that has been on the show is part of the BoxHard family. So my well wishes are with Jason Quigley, 13-0. I'd like to see him step it up a little bit, though, I must say, if I'm being honest. And now moving over to the final bill to mention, it's going to be the big one, of course, at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales, United Kingdom. Lots and lots of fights to predict on here as well. We've asked our Twitter followers as well to give us a hand there. Starting on this bill with Sean McGoldrick, 4-0. He takes on Ricky Little, who's 3-2 with 1 draw. Josh Buatsi, 4-0, takes on a guy called Bartlomiej Grafka, who's 20-28 with 3 draws. That's a 6-rounder there. What I will say about Josh Buatsi's opponent, actually, he's a guy that, like I say, he's been in with quite a few notable names. Of his 28 losses, he's only been stopped 5 times. He went the distance with Robin Krasnicki, who we know very well. He went the distance with Mark Heffron. He got knocked out by Zach Parker. He went the distance with Lennox Clark. He got knocked out by Tom Baker. He also went the distance with Paul Smith over 6 rounds, the very popular Paul Smith. And he got knocked out in 2 rounds by very hotly spoken about this week, Callum Johnson. So, yeah, he's been over here quite a few times. I don't really see him giving any problems to Josh Buatsi, but that's a 6-rounder there. All the best to Josh. Morgan Jones, 12-0, takes on a guy called Mose Ulmatagi Jr., who's 9-1 with 2 draws. That's a 6-rounder there. Anthony Crolla gets out on this bill as well. His record 32-6 with 3 draws. That's an 8-rounder there against Edson Ramirez, a Mexican with a very padded record, to be honest. His record 18-2 with 1 draw. I think it's going to be an easy win for Crolla, probably even a stoppage, to be honest. Joe Cordina, 6-0. It was a late replacement. It was supposed to be Andy Townend? And he's now been replaced by Hakeem Ben Ali, who's 19-5. Joe Cordina, like I say, 6-0. This one's for the vacant WBA International Lightweight title, which it seems quite crazy that he's actually fighting for that so quickly. It looks like they're going to try to move Cordina quite quick. But yeah, this guy, of his 5 losses, he's only been knocked out once. That was against a guy who, to be honest, I'm looking at him now. I don't know how to say his name, and I definitely haven't heard of him, so I'm not quite sure how good this guy is. He's a Belgian fighter. Moving up the bill once again, Josh Kelly, 5-0, fights for the vacant WBA International Welterweight title against the former IBF 154 World Champion Carlos Molina, who was on our show last week, 28-8 with 2 draws. Never been stopped, though. That's a 10-rounder there. We got to give our predictions on this one, Ayaz. Mariam, you can join in with the predictions as well. Not that they're going to get scored with us on the scoreboard kind of thing, because we've been doing it for so long, but you can just, participate in it just purely in case if you get any wrong, people can abuse you next week and stuff.
Fab.
Yeah, Ayaz, I'm going to come to you first. Josh Kelly and Carlos Molina. How do you see that fight playing out?
I'm going for Josh Kelly knockout.
Josh Kelly knockout. Okay, well, you reckon he's going to be the first man to stop Molina? Okay, our listeners have gone with Kelly by knockout as well. I will say that would be a huge statement if it does happen. Mariam, I'm going to come over to you now. How do you see that fight playing out?
Yeah, I can't disagree. I don't think it will be as easy because obviously Molina's bringing a lot of experience to the table. But yeah, I don't see anything other than a Kelly stoppage.
Right, I'm going against the grain as I do. I'm going to go with Kelly to win on points. I do want it to be very competitive because I do like, I've got a soft spot for Carlos Molina. He was on our show last week and he's a real good guy, and he seriously seems up for it. Anybody that hasn't listened to last week's show, the interview I did with Molina, there was something in his voice. I know that it can sound a little bit cliche, but sometimes you speak to people when you truly feel that they believe what they're saying, and you become a believer just hearing them speak, and that is the kind of vibe he gave me. So I hope it is quite a competitive fight. I don't want to see him get humiliated, but yeah, I'm very much a huge Josh Kelly fan at the same time, so I want him to do well as well. Huge credit as well to, not just Josh Kelly, but also his training team, Adam Booth, and even Eddie Hearn for putting this fight on. It's a brilliant, brilliant fight. Huge step up in class. Ryan Burnett, 18-0, puts his WBA Super World Bantamweight title on the line against Yonfres Parejo, 21-2 with one draw. Parejo, a man that has only been stopped once, but, he lost a split decision to Zanat Zakhainov, the guy that Burnett beat in the unification bouts, and also he got knocked out by Hugo Ruiz back in 2012, but Ruiz is a really big puncher, to be honest, so no shame in that. It was an 8th round stoppage back then. So in my eyes, I actually see Burnett winning this on points. I don't think he's going to stop Parejo. Our listeners, though, just to quickly check where they are on this, the listeners have gone with a Burnett knockout, so they're going against me. Ayaz, how do you see it, Burnett and Parejo?
I'm going for a Ryan Burnett win on points.
Yeah, I thought you would. And Mariam, how do you see that fight playing out?
I could see it happening like that. I wouldn't be surprised with a late stoppage, just because I think Ryan Burnett, like I said previously, he's got a lot of momentum right now, and he is, just on the up and up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see that. It would kind of make sense. It would be the next step. But yeah, I'm not gonna stray too far from your points prediction.
Okie dokie. Moving up the bill once again. What do we have? We have oh boy, Alexander Povetkin, 33-1, and the two belts that are on the line for this are the WBA Intercontinental Heavyweight title and the WBO International Heavyweight title. In the other corner, our very own David Price, 22-4. It's a 12-round contest, this one. Ayaz and Mariam, I must say, this one here, I actually asked our listeners, our followers on Twitter, how they see this fight playing out, and so many of them went with Povetkin to win by knockout that I just decided to delete the poll and make a new poll of when in the fight will Povetkin get the knockout. Will it be 1-3, 4-6, 8-9? Sorry, not 8-9, 7-9, and 10-12. Yeah, so where do you all see that one happening? Firstly, I'm going to come to... In fact, I'll go with you, Mariam. Ladies first. How do you see that one playing out?
Firstly, I can't believe that this fight is even happening. Like, I genuinely can't believe it. When it first came out on Twitter, I was like, yeah, like, no way, this is BS. And then when it was confirmed, I was like, are you, like, is this for real? Is this serious? I don't understand how this is happening, because there is just no other outcome than a Povetkin knockout. And it's not just going to be like a competitive for a few rounds and then Povetkin's going to land like a great jab or a great hook and it's going to be out. Like, this has the potential to be a really, really dangerous fight. And I don't think it's in Price's best health to even take the fight, especially given how badly Price has performed in recent years. And then to put him in with someone like Povetkin I just think it's a complete... I'm out of words. I'm speechless just because I can't believe the fight's happening. I can't believe that we're even having a discussion on what do we think is going to happen. It's clearly going to be a Povetkin knockout. It's clearly going to be really dangerous, and especially with everything that's been going on in the sport over the past year and year and a half. Even just recently with Scott Westcott, rest in peace to him. But with everything that's going on, we really shouldn't be allowing fights like these to go ahead. It's just completely negligent.
Very strong words there from Mariam. But yeah, no, sorry to kind of reignite that, but when do you see it coming? Do you see it coming, 1-3, 4-6?
Mate, I would not be surprised if it was a first round knockout, seriously.
So you're going 1-3, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going 1-3 as well. Ayaz, how do you see it? When will the knockout come? We hope we're wrong, of course, but when do you feel the knockout will come? I'm sure you think that Povetkin's going to win. Or are you going to shock me and say that Price is going to do him on points?
No chance. I can't see David Price winning this fight, obviously, because we've seen him. He's been knocked out already. He's been stopped by Erkan Tepa, Tony Thompson twice, and Christian Hammer. If I'm going to go for a knockout, I think David Price, I think he'll last about 5 rounds and then he'll get knocked out.
Okay, so you reckon 4 to 6 rounds then, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I will say on this, I just want to throw a quick note in here, and I want people that are listening to listen to what I'm saying quite carefully here. We know that David Price has clearly got confidence issues. I think that's been addressed not just by people in the boxing game, but also I'm pretty sure I've heard Dave Caldwell say that to me. I don't want to misquote Dave Caldwell in any way, but I'm sure he's come on here before and said that Price has got confidence issues and that's it. He can perform well in the gym, but under the lights he just can't do it. So I just want to know, the handlers, the managers, the promoters, anybody involved, anybody that's had a hand in making this fight, how on earth have they decided to put Price in here when he's got confidence issues? They're putting him in a stadium with 80,000 people in, so he's just not going to be able to do it. And not only that, but if you look back, he's been knocked out in all his 4 losses, and they've all been arguably to drug cheats, okay? I don't want to point the finger too much, but we know what happened with Tony Thompson. He says differently. He could be right, he could be wrong, but he did get found out for something, whether it was his fault or not. Erkan Tepa, we know what happened there, 100% drug cheat. And then Christian Hammer, I've heard all sorts of things about that. And now he's taken on another guy that's been found, putting things in his system that he shouldn't do. So he's fighting another. It's like this has already been written. I'm getting deja vu with it, But what I will say, the only thing I will say is that since Povetkin has seemingly become, a clean athlete, the stoppages haven't really been coming. He hasn't really looked as good. But I still think if you fed Povetkin, I'm not trying to be funny here, but I think if you fed Povetkin some sleeping pills and some laxatives, I still think he could get in there and beat Price, no matter what's in his system. But especially with nothing to degrade his performance, he's going to win. I mean, and even stuff that would degrade his performance, I still think that he'd win. I just cannot see Price even getting past the first. I tell you what, I'll give him this. I can't see round 5 beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if he went 4 rounds, but not 5. I just can't see it. And like I say, I'd love Price to knock him out. That's I'm sure what we all think. I've got no problem with Price. I like him, and he's obviously got a lot of nuts. You know what I mean? But it's such a mismatch. It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's about all I want to say on that one. So I'm going with rounds 1 to 3. So are you, Mariam. So are our listeners. Ayaz going rounds 4 to 6. And of course, the final fight and the biggest fight of the weekend to mention, Anthony Joshua, 20-0, puts his IBF, IBO, WBA heavyweight titles on the line. And in the other corner, the undefeated 24-0 Joseph Parker, putting his WBO world heavyweight title on the line. 4 belts up for grabs in total, but 3 of them recognised as proper world titles. It's of course going to be a 12-round fight, both men undefeated. There's been a few statistics thrown around. I think it's possibly the only time in history that 2 heavyweight champions are fighting each other in a unification, especially thrown in the fact that they're both undefeated as well. It really is a huge thing that's going on the weekend. I'm going to throw it over to you, Ayaz, actually, a bit off guard. How you see this fight playing out?
First, I think it's a tough fight for Anthony Joshua. Obviously, Joseph Parker, we've seen him fight already, right? We've seen him he's got quick hands. But then again, when I saw him against the Hughie Fury fight, he did not look good. When he obviously he didn't look good against the Hughie Fury fight. He just won the point. Obviously, he just nicked it. In my opinion, I think that first Hughie Fury won the fight, but with this fight, obviously, I can see a knock, I can see a stoppage, and I'm going to go with Anthony Joshua's stoppage. When Anthony Joshua fought Carlos Takam in his last fight, he is really, really heavy. Now, if you look at him, right, you can see videos of him training and that. He's trimmed down a lot. And if I'm going to, with this, I think this Anthony Joshua's going to have a lot of speed in this. He's still going to have the same power. But if I'm going to go for a stoppage, I'm going to go for Anthony Joshua within 10 or 11 rounds.
Okay, so quite late, you feel. One thing I will say, though, I was at Parker's open, well, it wasn't open, it was a media-only workout the other day at the Haymaker Gym last week, and I was shocked at how kind of small he looked. Like, I've met Parker before, and I don't know, it's something about him. I think he's coming light himself here, and he just looks quite small. Like, I mean, I looked at him and I was quite surprised. Like, he doesn't even look like a heavyweight. It's really weird. You know, I know that you can see it in pictures and stuff like that, but actually being up close to him, I was shocked, because I've seen him before and he's like quite a big guy and all that, but he just looks like, you know, like a light heavyweight, you know, to be completely honest, not to go overboard. But yeah, I think he's coming light as well. I think that you know, there's been mentions that I think he's had a few elbow problems, not just one elbow, but both his elbows, and they've been operated on successfully. And, you know, I certainly see him as the fighter with the quicker hands. I'm not quite sure if I'd say he's got the power. I don't think he does. But one thing that he definitely does have is the experience to go 12 rounds. As we've said many times, I think his last 3 or 4 fights now have all gone 12 rounds back to back. He hasn't been able to find the knockout in any of those. And when you look at the people that he's took on, they're very tough and durable opponents. You know, we've seen obviously Joshua recently take on Takam. I'm not sure the stoppage was going to actually come. There's a few arguable things with that stoppage there. It was a bit silly, but, you know, not to take nothing away from Anthony Joshua, he looks in great shape as well. And I just still think that the speed is with Parker. I think the power's with Joshua, and like I say, I think the engine is very much with Joseph Parker. And I think the experience, it's hard to kind of throw that down on one man, because I think that Joshua's probably fought the better opponents, definitely fought the better opponents, you'd have to say. But I think Joseph Parker's fought various different opponents with different styles. Look, when you take a look at Andy Ruiz Jr., a man that, you know, very quick hands, a very tough guy, and when you look at the likes of Hughie Fury, a man that's going to box and move and you know, make you look silly in parts of the fight. He's really seen every style. So there was an interesting bit when they did the sit down with Johnny Nelson, and Anthony Joshua said he's probably fought people like me. He's probably met people like me, but he hasn't met me. And I think that was quite a good thing to say, because I think that's quite true. Whereas he, you know, Joshua, especially not in his pro career, he hasn't fought anybody like Parker. That's what I will say. And one thing's going to happen for the first time here. Joshua's knocked everybody out, so he should get another knockout, and Parker's never been down in his whole life, so he's expected to not go down, or something is going to change in this fight here. So very exciting fight. I would have to go with a Joshua knockout, though. I think that's where the safe money is. I really got a lot of time for Joseph Parker. I'd love to see him do well once again. And I think David Hay made a great point in an interview that I saw with him, where he said if the fight goes past 6 rounds, then Parker's in with a real chance. I think that's a huge point. I really like that analogy there. But yeah, I'm going to throw it over to you now, Mariam, because you've been humming all along, waiting to say what you've got to say. Take it away.
Sorry about that. I agree with everything you say. But I think Parker has a good game plan in this fight in terms of coming in light, because obviously we know that he can't outpower or outpunch AJ. He's going to have to rely more, I think, on his defense and his ability to really move around the ring, because that's one area which we know that AJ struggles in. So coming in light, I think it's a good idea. And I even saw pictures from the press conference early this week. I mean, Parker looked really, really small in comparison to AJ. But again, that's not necessarily something that's going to be to his detriment. He can, you know, use that to his advantage and actually use it to help his movement, help his defense. Because I know the defense was something that, I think it was the Takam fight, or was it one of the earlier fights, that was something that everyone was kind of criticizing Parker for, and he's really improved on his defense. But obviously him coming in light is going to help with that. He'll be able to move around the ring easier, which I think will, you know, kind of throw AJ off a bit, because we know he has issues with his movement sometimes. But yeah, I don't see anything other than a late stoppage, and I think that's being generous to Parker. I mean, I really like Parker. I've got a soft spot for him. I think he's a great fighter, but I don't really see anything other than an AJ knockout at this stage, at least, of Parker's career.
Yeah, but once again, I think we got to definitely shell out a bit of credit for both men, really. Joseph Parker. What I will say is he does seem very, very, very relaxed. He hasn't seemed unnerved at any point during the whole build-up to this. Months and months ago, I think when they did the first press conference, to announce the fight kind of thing, and then, so close to this one, he hasn't changed at all. And I think there has been certain things what his team have said that have seemed to unnerve Joshua a little bit. He's kind of been a little bit defensive at times, but words are words. I don't think you can really look into it too much. When they did the face-off earlier this week at the press conference, I saw some people saying that Parker seemed very relaxed and Joshua seemed nervy, and then I saw another comment where someone said that Parker looked really nervy and Joshua seemed relaxed. So I don't really think you can accurately, especially me and most people, can't really look at someone's reactions and pick up anything valid from that. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be a great fight. I certainly give, like I say, both men credit. I think that Joshua, as we've got to be completely honest, right? I can't really remember in recent times a man that has made his debut and has got to 20 fights, and it's just kind of gone so quick. And when you look at the journey he's had in that time, and the reason why I've took extra notice of Joshua is because he had that coverage very quickly, straight away on his pro debut. He's been followed so closely, and he's already at 20 fights, and you kind of think, where's the time gone? I mean, if we're going to get the measure and stick out a little bit, I am pretty sure, I could be wrong, someone will have to correct me, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they made their debut on the same night, but I'm pretty sure that Charlie Edwards signed with Eddie Hearn on the same week that Anthony Joshua did, and they both did a press conference. They were both sat on the top table. And when you look at Charlie Edwards, I think he's had about 13 fights, something like that. Joshua's had 20 fights, and look at the opponents he's took on. Obviously Charlie Edwards had that one world title fight, and that was a brilliant opponent. But aside from that, I mean, he hasn't got any names in there like your Dominic Brazils, which again at the time we didn't really know how good Brazil was. He's proved to be a fantastic fighter. I really rate Brazil. So, yeah, I think Joshua, sometimes I think we need to cut him a little bit of slack because he's actually fought some top guys. And let's be honest, he's done a number on all of them. No matter what you think of the Klitschko fight, whether he was losing at the time of the stoppage and it was a bit questionable and all that, I think we've got to give him a bit of, cut him some slack. But, yeah, I mean, he's gone to 20-0 and he's been, he's never really failed to impress and failed to deliver. So credit to him. It's a very, very tough fight for him. Like I say, he's either going to get carried to 12 for the first time and not score any knockdowns and win a points decision, or Joseph Parker for the first time is going to find himself on the floor. Something's going to happen, or Joseph Parker's going to put Joshua on the floor, which has happened before, of course, but the JUCO team would be if they heard me right now, they'd be chanting and banging drums that I said that. But yeah, great fight. I'm hoping that it lives up to its expectations, and that's that. May the best man win. I can't wait to be there ringside, to be honest. Anything else that any of you want to add just before we wrap up the show, bring in guest two?
Nothing springs to mind, no.
Nothing. Ayaz, you all good?
Oh no, that's it.
Okie dokie. Like I say, just before we wrap up part 2, there's one last thing to do. That, of course, is to bring in our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning IBF Super-Middleweight champion of the world, Mr. Caleb Truax. Caleb, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Good to be back, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure, sir. It's great to have you back on. So, Caleb, first and foremost, the rematch against James DeGale has been signed. It's set to happen in just 10 days' time in Las Vegas on the undercard of Lara versus Hurd. How excited are you for the return fight? And I'm sure you're even happier that this time around the fight's happening on American soil. And not only that, but this time you go in as the champion. You go in not just believing that you can beat James DeGale, but knowing that you can beat James DeGale.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. This is we basically knew the fight was gonna happen as soon as the original was finished up. We just were waiting for the date and location, and they settled on Las Vegas. I was hoping it was gonna get made in Minnesota. There, Minneapolis was in the running for the rematch, but I guess logistics didn't work out, so we're headed to Vegas. I would have came back to London too, though, man. I liked it over there. It was fun, and the only thing that sucked about it is the plane trip, man.
Yeah.
But But no, Las Vegas is going to be fun. I've never fought there before. I can't wait to go out there and experience it. The big fight atmosphere is second to none out there. And like you said, man, I'm the champ now, and I know I can repeat the performance I had in December because I'm in great shape. I've had more time to prepare for this fight. And to tell you the truth, I'm more motivated for this fight than I was the first because I'm the champion. I thought I won pretty convincingly, and I'm still a huge underdog. I think I was 6-1 at somebody posted that I was 6-1 on the books right away. But no, man, I'm just motivated to go out there and prove everybody that it wasn't a fluke and silence all the critics and silence James DeGale too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a note on the fact that the fight is happening in America. James told me last week that he kind of felt like he wanted to get the win on your home soil like you did to him. That was somewhat to do with why the fight was happening in America. Is that true, though? Why is it really happening in America from your view?
I'm not sure. I didn't think there was ever a talk of it going back to England. From my understanding, it was either going to be in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, or at my home soil, Minneapolis. And from what I heard, he didn't want to come to Minneapolis to fight. So I don't know if that's true or not. But either way, it's in Las Vegas, and it ain't going to make no difference where it's at, man. I'm like I tell everybody, I'm a fighter. I'll go wherever. I don't care if it was in James DeGale's literally in his backyard. As long as they put a ring there and some people get to watch, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I believe you as well. And Caleb, I know that you listened to our interview last week with James DeGale on last week's podcast. What did you make of what James had to say?
It sounded like a lot of excuses to me. I listened in for a little bit, but I don't know, man. Before the original fight, all I heard was his shoulder was great. After the fight, he said it was great, and now all of a sudden he rushed it back. Like none of that matters to me, man. I don't care. Just come to fight. I hope he's healthy. I hope he's got 6 healthy arms when he comes in there on April 7th, man. That's the DeGale I'm ready for, and it doesn't really matter too much to me.
Now, last time you said that you felt that you needed to turn the fight into a dogfight in order to win because you felt that James had the superior boxing skills. Do you feel like you need to turn it into a dogfight to win the rematch at all?
It's up to him to make the adjustments. I'm gonna come and try to put pressure on him like I did last time, and see how he reacts. And if he does make adjustments, my coach will have me ready for the things that he thinks DeGale can do to be more successful. And if he doesn't, I don't think it'll be much different from the last fight. So I'll be ready to either box or just turn it into a dogfight, like you said.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I was going to say, do you believe the fight's going to be pretty similar to the first fight, or do you believe it'll be different in some ways? So you believe it will be similar to the first fight, you say?
I'm ready for it not to be similar. I think he's going to come motivated. He's going to be hungry. He's going to have to make changes if he wants to win the rematch. So I expect him. He's a world-class fighter. He's a former champion. I expect him to make the adjustments, and it's up to me to be ready for those adjustments. So if it's not similar, I'll be ready for it. If it is similar to the last fight, then I think it'll be shorter than the last fight.
And this time around, like you just mentioned, you're the underdog with the betting shops once again. Does that surprise you in any way? I'm just looking at it now. Over here in the UK, if I was to put £2 on you, I'd win £9 plus my £2 back, so 11 in total. So yeah, quite a big underdog again. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, to me, it's crazy, man. I could understand if if I knocked him out with a one shot or something like that when he was winning the fight. But the way I won, I felt I should be a favorite or an even fight or whatever. But I'm not too concerned about it. But all it is just another factor for me to draw motivation from and prove everybody wrong. And I might hit the sports book when I'm out in Vegas and lay a little money on myself.
Now, I know that I know that you know how important getting the win is on April 7th, but the super middleweight division right now is really hotting up. The WBC champion David Benavidez is looking very good. George Groves is looking great recently. Gilberto Ramirez, one of the longest unbeaten streaks in boxing, he's of course got the WBO. Uzcategui recently also picked up the interim IBF title. Is there anybody that I've mentioned at all that is somewhat on your radar, or are you just completely focused on James and you're not looking elsewhere at all?
I'll tell you, like I've told everybody else that I've done interviews with leading up to this April 7th fight, is I don't want to fall into the same trap that I think that he fell into before our December fight, which is looking forward and counting your dollars and trying to figure out who you're going to fight next. So I'm 100% focused on DeGale. Once this fight's over, I'll let Al Heyman, I'll let my promoter, Seconds Out and Warriors Boxing, they'll come up with best for me, and I want the biggest fights out there, man. I'm a little long in the tooth, man. I'm 34. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be boxing. While I'm doing it, I want to get the most out of it and make the biggest fights and satisfy the fans and take care of my family.
And since we last spoke, we saw George Groves conquer Chris Eubank Jr. It's, in some people's eyes, was a little bit of an upset win, that. We've also seen Callum Smith get past his late notice opponent. Who do you believe wins the final of the Super Middleweight World Boxing Super Series, Caleb?
I thought Groves looked really good against Eubank. I thought he boxed really well, used his jab really well, and outclassed him. I thought I can't remember what the scorecards were, but I didn't even think it was very close the way I scored it. Callum Smith, I'm not too familiar with him. I know he's real tall and rangy, and he was supposed to be a really big puncher from what I heard, but he didn't look too big of a puncher when I watched that fight, his last fight with the guy that replaced Bramer. But they both can fight, man. I hopefully George Groves gets healthy and is able to fight in the final against them. I don't know. Talk was that they're going to push it back and allow Groves his shoulder to heal. So hopefully he gets that shot, and I would probably go with Groves. I think I'd favor Groves in the final just based off experience alone.
And coming down to the last couple questions now, I recently did an interview with Badu Jack, and he was praising you quite a lot during that interview. So I'm going to ask you, no pressure. Badu Jack takes on Adonis Stevenson on May 19th. How do you see that one unfolding?
Man, Badu's my guy, man. We fought on the same card once and shared a locker room. Really good people. All of his team was really good people, and he's a great fighter, man. I think the run that he's been on, since he won the title, he's had a number of great victories, and he's kind of flew underneath the radar on like Fighter of the Year type things. But I think he's had great years. I think it's been 2 or 3 years since he won the title, the super middleweight title. But I think he goes in there and beats him, man. I'm confident in him and the route that he's taken, and Adonis is getting pretty old, and also he's just so inactive. I think Badu Jack is going to be on top of his game, and Stevenson might be a little bit rusty, but he does have that one punch eraser though, so there's always that. But I think Badu Jack, I think he'll draw up a game plan and get it done.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think it's going to be a great fight, that, and I can't not ask you about the huge heavyweight clash in just a couple days' time. Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. A lot of mixed opinions I'm seeing. Really depends who you speak to. How do you see that one unfolding?
I'm not super familiar with Parker. I've seen a couple of his earlier fights just on YouTube. I looked him up when everybody was talking about him, but I haven't seen too much of him lately. But I know he's got good speed, and he's a good combination puncher for a heavyweight. Puts his punches together quite well. I don't think he can beat AJ though. I think Joshua's too big and just strong and powerful, and he also is a really good boxer for the size guy that he is. I think Joshua wins. I could see this one going the distance though. I could see Parker being able to box and stay away from getting knocked out, but I'm excited. I'm definitely going to be watching on Saturday, and then I leave out to Las Vegas on Sunday morning. So I'll be my last bit of time to hang out with the family, and I'll watch that fight.
Oh, brilliant, man, brilliant. And I must also ask you your prediction for April 7th, if you have one. I asked this same question last week to James. He said that, well, he didn't actually give me a method, whether he saw himself winning on points or by a stoppage, but he did say he believes he'll win with flying colours. How do you see it, Caleb?
That's what he said last fight, too. I see myself winning more dominantly than the first time, whether that be by stoppage or wider decision. I don't care, but I think I win more comprehensively than the first time.
And I will just say, just before I let you go, have you got any kind of message to your UK fans? You've picked up quite a following. Obviously, you're well respected for coming over here and beating James DeGale. What's your message to all your followers over this side of the water?
Thanks for the continued support, guys. I think I got more Twitter followers from the UK than I do the United States now after that fight in London in December. But thank you for the support. Hopefully I pick up some more fans after I beat DeGale again, and hopefully you guys won't hold it against me for beating your guy twice.
Okay, listen, Caleb, thank you for your time. Best of luck for April 7th, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime afterwards, my friend.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 128 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. The magnificent Mariam has also been with us for the duration of this week's show. I'd also like to thank our two guests on this week's show as well. The trainer of some of the hottest UK boxing talent, Mr. Peter Fury, and the current IBF Super-Middleweight champion of the world, Mr. Caleb Truax. The t-shirt competition this week is a simple one. Send us a tweet with your funniest boxer's nickname. Once again, the funniest nickname of any boxer that you can find. We've restocked the BoxHard Podcast t-shirts now, so we've got all sizes out there. So just simply send us a tweet to enter that competition there. The prediction league currently stands at myself on 24 points, Ayaz on 31 points, and you, the listeners, in the lead with 32. There are another 4 points up for grabs this weekend also, so best of luck to everybody involved in that. Have a great weekend, people. Be sure to enjoy it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.